So we're ready to go. So our presentation is called Finding Effective and Efficient Ways to Measure Client Goals and Outcomes. And it's a bit of a derivative of sort of what we just heard from CODA as one of the steps as well. So we can change slides. So this is a picture of our team. There's Chris and Courtney and myself and Lisa and Dawn. Unfortunately, Sarah, one of our frontline voice of the front lines, couldn't be in the picture. She's just off right now. Moving on, thank you. So just a brief overview. Our mission is to enhance the lives of individuals by providing community support services and affordable housing to promote independent living in our district of Nipissing. And we do that dans les deux langues officielles. We know that staff work diligently to meet clients where they're at and provide opportunities for growth, but we don't have a way to measure client success or to identify where there may be opportunity for improvement in both process and service delivery to improve our client outcomes in goal planning and, of course, in recovery. So we plan to design, test, and implement a process to allow us to record and report on client goal development and attainment using SMART goal planning. So that just speaks to being specific, measurable, attainable, relevant to the client, and time limited within our intensive case management program. So this is just one agency program that we have for now. Our hope is that we can then adapt these findings to other programs and also share our work with other agencies and services doing similar work and maybe experiencing similar obstacles as we're doing now. So our problem statement started to say that our intensive case management, the ICM program, knows that client-centered goal planning improves outcomes in the day-to-day as well as client needs over time. Nobody disputes that, but although OCANs are being completed regularly, we do not have a structured way of knowing if client information is being used effectively in recovery planning. So currently we have 91% of our clients completing OCANs, not self-OCANs, but the staff OCAN, but we're not sure about the efficacy of that. So our aim statement, big dot, was our agency plans to promote recovery by changing unmet needs or converting unmet needs to met needs or no needs over time. And the small dot aim was to increase efficiency and effectiveness of goal planning. So we've pledged that 80% of our intensive case management clients, of which there's about 150, will have identified a SMART goal in CRMS by November of 2019. We will also request feedback from clients as part of our annual spring survey and expect to see an increase in clients reporting that the ongoing use of OCAN in their recovery-oriented service planning has value to them in meeting their goals. So our diagnostic journey involved two of the tools, that being the fishbone and the 5 whys. So just read and kind of summarize this a bit. We brainstormed about any and all factors that could be contributing to our problem statement. They were written on yellow stickies. I'm sure most of you know this practice, and attached to the whiteboard under several headings, which you'll see there. The bottom line there, the top 2 items that were identified through the process for us were measurement and clients, and then we began to do the 5 whys. So this is just a picture of our early fishbone before we began to pare it down and digest it a little more. You'll see there are several stickies on some of the other features there as well. But some of those things, when we looked at them, we found commonalities between the different pieces. So by the time we kind of boiled it down, we came up with the 2 that I mentioned there before. So measurement and clients were the big 2. The 2 big things that came out of this, and again, I won't go through each of the questions throughout the process, but there is no simple or useful way to track if goals are being met. And through the process, we came out to, at the bottom, you'll see there it says, to explore the validity and use of OCAN reporting in identifying and tracking goals. So we weren't using them or effectively, or didn't really know what they could do for us, or whether or not the information that we were seeing was valid. And the second one, clients may not be engaged or actively working on goals. So we do have some clients who are just happy to maintain the status quo and really don't want to make any change. So we wanted to explore the use of what we call the goal attainment scale in our client record management system. It's called CRMS here, to capture goals more effectively. So we did a bit of a run chart for outcome measures on our baseline data. What we did is I went back through consultation with CCIM and Jennifer Zosky and managed to get to one of the reports there. I think the source is actually hidden under my graphic, unfortunately, but it's 6B is the report that we get from CCIM, which talks about the conversion of unmet needs to met or no needs. This is run over a 12-month period to ensure that it captures the client's most recent OCAN and the one prior to that. And from there, we can actually look at, this is a percentage, so it ranges from 19% there in April to a high of 24% in May, with a median of 21.5%. So roughly 20% of needs it looks like we're being converted on a monthly basis. However, this report is a monthly report, so the data runs, for example, from April to April, and then from May to May, and June to June, and so on. So only 1/12 of the data actually changes month to month, so we didn't expect to see a lot of variance there. Oh, good, my teeter-totter worked. I wasn't sure if it would here. Change concepts. The team identified a number of change concepts to address our problem statements, and then fashioned these into change ideas that we could test and measure over time. So we had a number of them. We had to prioritize them. Our driver diagram added structure to our thinking, and we asked how our change concepts and ideas would impact both the primary and secondary drivers by asking how and why, and again, that was very helpful. So we adapted these to ensure they were in line with our aims, the two aims that I mentioned earlier. This step also allowed us to think about possible impacts these changes could have on clients and staff, as these are our balancing measures, as you see here, and to further refine our process measures. So one of the balancing measures just we're looking at and tracking along the way is the number of hours of staff training for our orientation. So we actually started with a full day of ideas training for one of the staff that was involved in this. And so over time, there's 2 staff that are currently doing our PDSA. And so we've got roughly 2 hours of staff training time and review and follow-up. So it's 1 hour bi-weekly with the 2 of them. One of them is actually off right now, so we've just got one currently doing our PDSA, and we're waiting for the other staff to return back, so we'll be able to bring those numbers up a bit. So our first change idea centers around testing the goal attainment scale in CRMS to create and track SMART goals. Training materials were developed, and 2 staff were provided with orientation training on SMART goal planning to incorporate into their regular OCAN cycles. Our theory is that by adding SMART structure to goal planning, clients will take a more proactive role or be more involved or have more of a voice and a little more accountability in working toward their unmet needs where they have identified a goal to fulfill their hopes and dreams. We'll know that our changes made an improvement when we begin to see SMART goals in our reporting, and also an increase in that conversion of unmet needs to know or met needs over time. So that's a longer term trend, but we're looking forward to following that. And also clients reporting that the new process has been of value to them. So when we do our survey blitz in March, those will be the OCAN network is working on 4 or 5 questions now to ask clients about their perceived value of using that tool. Our assumption for improvement is based on unknown baseline data for goals achieved, as we had no way to track these previously. So our baseline was 0, and we were quite concerned about that, but our coaches reassured us that 0 is actually a number, so that's where we started. We have baseline data on conversion of unmet needs, as I showed you there in the first run chart, but not all OCAN identified needs necessarily result in a goal. And sometimes goals are identified and resolved within the 6-month reassessment cycle. So it's not, even though the PDSA staff are currently doing this process as part of the current OCAN reassessment cycle, there are still goals that can be developed between the 2 OCANs. So these may not be captured within an OCAN report. PDSA progression. Other ideas came out of the process, including adapting a 5-point scale to allow staff to enter specific steps that a client follows toward a goal rather than a more generic assessment of their progress to date. So just to give you a brief example, if somebody was looking at nutrition as a goal, one of the GAS, the goal attainment scales, it's a 5-point scale from -2 to +2, might say the client eats nutritious meals 25, 50, 75, 100% of the time, for example, where we had actually looked at tweaking the templates to put it into more action-specific steps to say the client will look up recipes that are within nutritional guidelines and a budget. They'll circle items that are on sale in a sales flyer. They'll walk to the grocery store. They'll prepare meals, and then we'll estimate how many nutritious meals they're eating in the course of a week. So it's a little more task specific, and our team provided us with that feedback, and they like that idea. We also developed an active goals report to give staff the ability to see their ongoing client goals and a 14-day reminder in their task flow pane. So it just lets them know that in 2 weeks they do have a review coming up with one of their clients. And this is a picture of nice picture of our PDSA ramp and cycle. I think this took the most time to actually get this on paper, but we managed to do it. So the first one says pushing goals from the OCAN into the goal attainment scale. CRMS was kind enough to help us to develop a way to do that. However, we quickly found that by doing that, maybe all 12 things that a client had identified as part of their action summary were pushed into goals, and we weren't looking to do that at this point. We only wanted to have a goal or two, whatever the client wanted to prioritize to work on first as part of this. So we're not using that feature. We're actually just creating goals using the templates on a one-by-one basis. Assessing staff training time, well, that's just ongoing development there, where we do track how much time staff are using. And then the active goals report is really the one that we did. You'll see there's a lot of development in the background initially. So we did that with CRMS so that managers and staff could both see what the outstanding active goals were that they had for each client, which ones had been achieved, and what the review dates were. So there was a bit of testing and then some tweaking and refinement, and now more testing. And finally, the SMART goal use in CRMS, that's something that we're still currently working on. We're developing it, and we are beginning to use it in the PDSA with staff who we encourage to use the SMART model. But it occurs to us we do need to do some more effective training and develop policy and protocol around that. So as we move through the PDSA and involve more staff and then move to implement, we will certainly have those features in place. And we'll change slides.
Sorry, Evan, we're stuck for a sec.
We're stuck for a sec, Ivan.
Oh, okay. I thought you lost me again. I'd been muted for the past 15 minutes. Okay,
no,
data analysis. Generally, the measurement of baseline data is compared to data from testing a change in order to assess the efficacy of the intervention. In our case, our original data point was 0, as we had no real way to discern which goals were being attended to and achieved. We knew that they were, we just couldn't qualify or quantify that. And change. Oh.
1 second, sorry.
Okay.
Can I call you over here?
There we go. So the run charts for our outcome measures, as you can see, we had 0. There we go. We had 0 for a number of months, and then as we began to implement, ours is not, although we know that staff work diligently to meet clients where they're at. Prior to July, we didn't have any data. Ours is an opportunity to create improvement in the way we measure progress through SMART goals. Although it's early days, we're now able to see when a goal is developed with a client. So currently you'll see we are up to 3 now. And again, that's more a feature of one of our staff who's been off for a few weeks. So we just have one staff, and we meet with her bi-weekly, and each time she does an OCAN, she started to implement. As it's not a bad thing, actually, that we've kind of gone slowly because we have made adjustments along the way, so we'll be better suited to spread that out to the team. In the future, we may opt to implement discussion of goals as part of our weekly, what we call pods, providing optimal direct service. It's our case conference that we do each Monday, and we're going to look to build that in to ensure that we're continuing to use SMART methodology in our approach. And so folks can challenge each other a bit and provide ideas on ways that they can make goals smarter if they're not, I don't mean to say if they're not smart, but to make them more useful.
Our mouse keeps heading someplace for cheese, I think, so we're just trying to find it again.
Well, I heard that police siren. I thought you were doing sound effects now.
No, we that's all the way 14 floors down. Jenna's trying something else. Here. It's a sneaky mouse.
That's okay. I can catch my breath.
Okay. Well, your next one is on smart goal planning.
Is this where we want to be?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is actually, I think, more of a review. It just shows how what I've been talking about, the PDSA that we're doing with staff regarding SMART goals. So training materials were provided to 2 staff, and then we can go to the next slide if you can. So we're currently working with CCAM to explore the use of the aggregated data. So that's the report 6B that I mentioned in conversion of unmet needs to met or no needs over time. The reports reflect all full OCAN sets, so the current and the most previous OCAN. Over time, we hope to see the trend toward a lower number of outstanding unmet needs. And it'll be interesting to dig down into the domains as well to see if there's some that we're more effective at resolving. I think we noted when we went to the OCAN day down in Toronto that the big 4 items that we had were consistent with provincial data. We're also working to match some available goal templates to the current 24 OCAN domain headings to increase consistency in CRMS, and we may create other templates under other headings where none currently exist. So these templates we actually got from CRMS. They were built for Frontenac Hospital, I think, in Kingston, but they shared them with us, and we were able to kind of tweak them and adapt them to meet our needs. All 24 of the templates that we were provided with fell under only 3 headings, either mental health, vocational, or activities of daily living. So we're now working to split those out and actually map them to whichever of the 24 domains in OCAN that they best fit with, just to make it more consistent for staff. Lessons learned. We're excited to see our progress. We came to realize there's value in moving slowly for sure, and to ensure that each step in our process was reviewed and consistent with the aims and objectives before moving forward to the next step, and also including staff in that process so that we had feedback along the way. This allowed us to ensure that we had a solid foundation and understanding, and we've been able to refine the process as we move forward. HR is always a factor, of course, in determining the pace of change and our resources available to the project, and we do continue to measure frontline staff time and involvement in the project. A lot of the necessary and time-consuming work done at the front end was development of the software interface for staff, testing of reports to allow us to measure progress, while the bulk of this work occurred prior to rolling out to staff to try as part of our PDSA. It was important to have their feedback and suggestions on how we can enhance the experience and minimize their workload impacts and increase opportunity and uptake with our clients. Yeah, further lessons. We did have a bit of a rough start. We missed the executive sponsor meeting due to a snowstorm, and to some staff needing to leave the team for various reasons. Although these were outside our control, it sometimes felt like we were scrambling to catch up, but our coaches reassured us, and we got to a point where we felt comfortable with our progress to date, particularly when our change ideas and the process and outcome measures started to come together, and we could see that real structure and progress on paper. Because our project was tied to the use of OCAN, we also participate in the OCAN network table, which has been very useful. We did the OCAN think tank on June 21st, and we're also involved with the team at CCIM. It was startling to see how many other services were struggling with and finding resolutions to the exact same issues that we had, especially when we went to Toronto for the think tank day, and also that our aggregated data was entirely consistent with that in the province. We made use of the E-QIP community of practice for reference material, so our coaches were very good at directing us. And if we couldn't find something or we got a document that we couldn't edit, they were very good at helping us find something that we could use. The impact and value to our team going forward beyond the project will allow us to use the same techniques for other issues. So we already have another separate PDSA ongoing around cancellations, kind of digging into those a little more. And the ideas training that the team receive will only benefit them as we continue to move forward. So next steps, we have set a high priority on assessing, as you were talking about in the last CODA presentation, the Self-OCAN information guide for clients, which is put out by CCM, in order to standardize the way that Self-OCANs are offered by staff, and will encourage all staff to be consistent in offering it each time an assessment or reassessment is given, regardless if a client has previously declined it. We're also going to look to do a better job of recording in the OCAN itself, the staff OCAN, the reasons why Self-OCAN was declined. Currently, we have 30% of those say other, so we're not really sure what those are. We will also prepare a training plan for the team on the use of SMART goals, as well as goal planning tools such as the GAS in CRMS, and also paper goal sheets that folks can take out into the field, because we don't carry laptops with us, so we can do the work in the field and then bring it back and enter it into the system. We'll continue to solicit and document feedback from our current PDSA participants on their perceptions of value to them and to clients, as well as any pain points they may have felt or heard, in order to make the process as smooth as possible. And we'll continue to measure and report on the number of SMART goals developed by staff each month. And that's it. I just left you all with a brief quote. It says, "We cannot direct the wind, but we can adjust the sails so recovery is possible." I always finish all my presentations with that one. So now, any questions?
Hi, Ivan. It's Mike. Great presentation. I mean, you guys have done a lot of work, and it's really impressive to see it presented like this. I was just wondering, outside of this project, do you have any sense of how or if you're going to be able, or folks in the team will be able to use the skills that they've learned, the QI skills, towards other projects? Has that been something that's been on the radar, on the horizon?
Well, we haven't really thought too far beyond this because it's been a little all-encompassing. Like, we had our best ideas training, a lot of them on the 13th of June. So that's actually been helpful, because then when they hear a bit about what the E-QIP team is doing sort of in the background, they hear bits and pieces, they kind of get it. When we start talking about PDSAs, they've at least heard those terms. So they're feeling a little more comfortable. It's not so foreign to them. I think moving forward, though, based on our driver diagram, we have a number of different change concepts and ideas that came out of this process. And so what we've done, I didn't go into it in this presentation, but we've prioritized those in terms of high, medium, and low priority with our coaches. And so some of the other spin-off stuff that's going to come out of this will involve PDSAs as well, and some of that will likely use the same background information or process.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you.
Thanks, Ivan. Any other questions for Ivan's group? Put up your hand, we'll come see you or unmute you.
can also type your questions into the chat box and I'll read them out for you if you wish.